There is a kind of family that forgets you for 2 years, then finds you in 48 hours the day your name shows up next to the right dollar sign. I'm Tracy Langley, 35, and I run a design studio in Columbus, Ohio. For most of my adult life, my parents treated me like a rumor. They skipped my wedding. Then my mom saw one Instagram photo of the Porsche I'd bought myself, and suddenly she wanted a family meeting the next night. About my brother. About money that had somehow already become mine. I showed up. I showed up with a surprise. By the end of that night, 2 things were over. And a third thing, none of them saw coming, had just begun. Before we step into that living room, let me take you back to that Tuesday morning, the day my mother's name lit up my phone for the first time in 11 months. Our house sits in Clintonville, 15 minutes north of downtown Columbus. I bought it the year I turned 30, a 1942 bungalow with original oak floors I refinished myself on weekends. The kitchen smelled like cedar and the cinnamon candle Ethan always lit before he made the coffee. On my left ring finger sat the plain gold band my grandmother had pressed into my palm the week before she died. Her name was Ruth. She was the only one in that family who ever asked what I wanted before telling me what I needed. Langley and Company, my studio, was in its 8th year. 12 employees. We'd just signed a 3-phase contract with the Westin to restore a heritage ballroom in Cincinnati. The press release went out that Monday. My mother never called about the press release. She called about a photo. 2 weeks earlier, I'd turned 35. I bought myself a 911 Turbo in a color called chalk. I sat in the driveway and cried for about 6 minutes, not over the car, but because the quiet 10-year-old girl who used to ride in the back of my dad's Buick with the groceries finally knew she was safe. Ethan took one picture. I posted it to Instagram with 2 words: earned it. The folder in the drawer wasn't a revenge plan. It was a 501c3 filing. Margaret Holloway, my attorney of 9 years, had drafted the Articles of Incorporation in January. I'd signed them. The seed money, $250,000, was already sitting in a segregated account at Huntington National. The fund had a name. It had a mission statement. It had bylaws. What it didn't have yet, on the morning my mother called, was its first recipient. I'd left that line blank on purpose. I wanted to write the name by hand, in front of people, while they watched. I closed the drawer. "Is that her?" Ethan asked, tying the last loop of his tie. "That was her." "You okay?" "I'm ready." Some childhoods you only understand in the rearview mirror. Derek is 3 years older. He rode shotgun. I rode in back, between the grocery bags and the dry cleaning. Every trip. My mother would turn around to hand him a juice box, and I'd hold the eggs. I didn't know it was strange. When you're 7, you think every family arranges itself that way. On Derek's 16th birthday, my father handed him the keys to a blue Honda Civic with 80,000 miles and a dented fender. The 3 of us ate ice cream cake in the driveway. Pictures in the album. On my 16th birthday, my mother said, "You don't need a car, Tracy. Girls don't have to drive very far." My Aunt Marlene was there. She nodded like it was wisdom. The acceptance letter came the spring of my senior year. Rhode Island School of Design. Fine Arts, illustration, with a minor in architectural drawing. I read it on the porch with my hands shaking. Tuition and room and board was about $22,000 a year. My parents looked at the envelope and then at each other. My father said, "Art won't pay a mortgage, sweetheart." My mother said, "We already committed to Derek's MBA. We can't do both." Derek got his MBA at Ohio State, paid in full. 2 years of it. He finished in the middle of his class and went into car sales for 5 years, then the first auto shop, then the second auto shop. You know the rest. I went to Ohio State too, on a merit scholarship that covered about 60%. Interior design. A practical major, my father called it. A useful one. I loved it, eventually. I did. There's a difference between what you love and what you are going to love. My professors were kind. RISD was the road not taken, and for 15 years I pretended I'd never looked down it. The fund in my drawer had the name of that road on it. We sent the wedding invitations 6 months out. My mother RSVP'd yes on the little card with a fountain pen. My father signed his name below hers. Derek and his wife Heather signed the same card. I kept all 4 cards in a drawer like a kid keeps report cards. 2 weeks before the ceremony, My phone buzzed during a client walkthrough, a text from my mother. Honey, the date conflicts with the baptism for Derek's baby. Little Mason, you understand. I stepped outside the house on Wyandotte Avenue and sat on the bumper of my car. The baptism was at 10 in the morning. Our wedding was at 5 in the afternoon. They had 90 miles of highway between them and 7 hours in between. I typed back, "You can do both." I already checked the drive time. 3 dots. Then nothing. Then nothing for 14 days. On the morning of my wedding, my mother posted 27 photos from the baptism party to Facebook. Little Mason in a white gown, my father holding him, Aunt Marlene captioning hearts under every picture. Family is everything. Aunt Marlene wrote that twice. My 3 bridesmaids walked me down the aisle between them. 43 chairs faced the pergola. 2 of them, front row, aisle side, had small ivory envelopes on them with my parents' names. Ethan had insisted, just in case. I didn't look at those chairs during the ceremony. I looked at Ethan. His hands were a little cold. Mine were steadier than I expected. I danced once with my father-in-law. He's a plumber from Toledo. He said, "Tracy, today you joined a family that shows up." I didn't cry that night. I cried 4 days later in the shower. Then I decided 2 things. I would never reach out first again, and whoever wanted me in their life after that day would have to come find me. I'd forgiven them on the honeymoon. The problem was simple. They'd never asked to be forgiven. They'd just asked for more. By 8:15 I was on the phone with Margaret. Her assistant put me through before I finished my second sip. "Something happened," I said. "My mother called. She never calls." "Tell me." I told her. The family meeting, the 2-year silence, the Porsche picture. Margaret was quiet for about 10 seconds. I could hear her typing. "Tracy, I'm going to run something. Give me 5 minutes." Those 5 minutes I spent staring at the magnet on the fridge, a little ceramic peach from a trip we'd taken to Georgia. Abby had given it to me, my 17-year-old niece, the only person in the Langley bloodline who remembered my birthday without being prompted. Margaret called back. "First Federal, 2 weeks ago. 180, co-signed by your father and Derek. There's a note in the loan officer's file. Handwritten. It says additional family signer likely. Parenthesis, T. Langley. He offered me up without asking me. He hinted. They interpreted. It's not legally binding, but the loan officer is Harold Kramer, plays golf with your dad at Marion Country Club." I sat down on the kitchen stool. Ethan handed me fresh coffee without saying a word. "Margaret, if I say no, they'll tell the whole town I abandoned my brother. That's socially expensive, not legally expensive. 2 different checkbooks. And if I say yes? Then you're the family ATM for as long as Derek can't pay a bill, which is probably forever." I watched the steam off the mug. 11 years I'd built a business without asking my father for $1. 2 weeks ago, he'd sold my name to a country club friend for 80 cents on the dollar. "I'm going to the meeting," I said. "You sure? If I don't go, I never really leave." Margaret exhaled. "Then I'm coming too, in a suit." My grandmother was my mother's mother. Her name was Ruth Ann Langley. Technically she was a Dunbar, but she went back to her maiden name after her husband died in 1991 and never changed it back. She lived in a small brick house in Mansfield with a porch swing and a garden of marigolds the color of school buses. The summer I was 12, she pulled me into her sewing room and pushed a brown envelope across the quilting table. "You keep this, Tracy. Don't show your mother." I opened it. Inside was a black and white photograph of a young woman in a paint-stained smock, standing in front of a half-finished watercolor of a barn. She was smiling at someone off camera. She looked about 19. "Is that you, Grandma?" "That was me. I wanted to go to art school in Cleveland. My father said a girl doesn't need a diploma to iron shirts. I married your grandfather 6 weeks later." She tapped my hand. "Don't you be me, Tracy. And don't let anyone in this family make you be me." She died when I was 24. Her will left me $52,000 in a Vanguard account nobody else knew existed. She'd put $50 a month into it for 41 years. That was the seed money for Langley and Company. My mother doesn't know where I got the startup capital. She assumed Ethan's parents, which is funny because I didn't meet Ethan until I was 31. The folder on my desk that morning had the fund's legal name on the cover, the Ruth Langley Arts Fellowship. I opened the drawer below it, reached past the bank records, took out the small envelope my grandmother had given me 23 years earlier, slid it into the folder, zipped the folder closed. Some things, she'd said once, only become real once you put them on paper. Tomorrow night I was bringing the paper. Derek texted me Monday night. Lunch tomorrow, McAllister's. Before the meeting, just us. I almost said no. Then I thought, let him show me his opening. He walked in 10 minutes late. He looked thinner, stubble. His jacket was the same North Face he'd had since 2018. Hey, you look good. Thanks, you too. We ordered. Chopped salad for me, French dip for him. Derek leaned forward. That Porsche is nice. Thank you. How much was it? Enough. Tracy, I'm in a corner. I know. 180. I need you in for half. I haven't agreed to anything. Mom told the bank you would. Mom doesn't sign my name. He set his sandwich down. You want me to lose the house? I want you to get a job. I'm looking. Since when? He didn't answer. The server came by with iced tea refills. He stared at the table. Tracy, I'm your brother. I know what I am to you. I'm asking what you are to me. He looked up, confused, like I'd spoken Russian. I'm your brother. That's the title, not the job. He slid his chair back. Forget it. We'll talk tomorrow. Derek. He stopped at the door. I paid our bill. Last time I'll do that. He didn't turn around. The door jingled. I sat there another 10 minutes, finished my tea, paid both meals. $32 in change, tipped 25% because our server was college age and looked tired. In the parking lot I called Ethan. He's playing the house card. Of course he is. He thinks Mom closes it tonight. She might try. Let her try. I drove back to the studio and finished a Weston mood board. The curtains would be raw silk, Dupioni. I specified the swatch twice. Small things matter when big things are circling. That afternoon, Ethan drove to Target for paper towels and dog food. We have a golden retriever named Biscuit. He'd been out of kibble for 3 days. Ethan was looking at bath mats when he heard a voice he recognized but couldn't quite place. A woman around 60, short gray hair, patterned sweater. She was on her phone in the aisle, talking loud enough that the kids stocking shelves winced. Diane, I know. She's always been headstrong. No, I'll be there. I'll sit between you and Patricia. We'll talk sense into her before she leaves. Ethan pretended to read a Brita filter box. The thing is, Diane, she has the money. She does. The whole town sees that car. She just needs to remember what family means. Yes, I know. Ethan recognized the sweater. He'd seen it in a Facebook photo my mother had sent him as an olive branch 3 months into our engagement. Aunt Marlene Holbrook, my mother's older sister. He didn't say anything. He bought the dog food. He drove home. He waited until I was chopping peppers for stir-fry to tell me. Your Aunt Marlene is in on it. I figured. She's sitting between Patricia and your mom, for optics. Patricia the neighbor. I set the knife down. So it's not a family meeting. It's a sentencing. I laughed. A short one, not a happy laugh. The kind you laugh when you realize the script you've been given has been rehearsed by everyone except you. I picked up my phone. Margaret, can you come with me tomorrow night? As counsel, not as a friend. I need the title. Suit or blazer? Suit. Pearl earrings. The intimidating ones. See you at 6. I hung up. Ethan was smiling. What? You're not going to cry tomorrow? I cried enough in 2023. Wednesday after school, I picked Abby up in the Porsche. Not to show off. The Civic was in for an oil change and I'd already promised her ice cream that week. She climbed in and whistled. Aunt Tracy, this car is obscene. I know. My dad is going to lose his mind. Probably. We drove to Grader's on High Street. She got the black raspberry chip. I got the butter pecan. We sat on the bench out front. 63 degrees, a little wind. Can I ask you something? She said. Always. She reached into her backpack, pulled out a white envelope with a logo on the corner, Savannah College of Art and Design. I got in. I set my ice cream down, hugged her, hard. Abby, that's huge. Dad said they can't afford it. What did he say exactly? He said I should do 2 years at Marion Tech and transfer. He said art school is a money pit. I breathed out slowly. What did you say? I didn't say anything. I just went to my room. Show me your portfolio. She pulled out a spiral-bound book. 24 pages of watercolors, landscapes, a self-portrait in blue washes, a study of her grandmother's hands, my mother's hands, bent over a rolling pin. She was 17 and she was already good, better than good. I took a picture of the self-portrait with my phone. Did anyone ever tell you about Grandma Ruth? Who's Grandma Ruth? Nobody had told her. Nobody had told this kid about the woman whose hands she'd inherited. Abby, tomorrow night, your grandparents' house, 8 o'clock. Wear the navy sweater I bought you. Bring the portfolio. Bring the acceptance letter. Why? I can't tell you yet, but I promise it's good. Will you trust me? She licked her spoon, looked at me a long second. I've trusted you since I was 8. Good girl. Thursday morning, Margaret and I met in the conference room of her office on Gay Street. Floor-to-ceiling windows, bad coffee, good leather chairs. She laid 6 documents across the walnut table. Articles of incorporation, the 501c3 determination letter from the IRS bylaws, seed funding agreement, the first recipient letter on cream-colored stock, the fund seal in a small cardboard box, resting on cotton batting. Tracy, last chance. You can still do this quietly. No. You can name someone else as recipient. Abby doesn't have to go public. Her mother signed the release. Abby signed it. They both want her name on it. You sure about tomorrow night? I'm sure. She slid a gold fountain pen across the table. Then sign, and I'll witness, and we'll have something to put on the coffee table. I signed 5 pages. She stamped the seal on 3 of them. The 6th was the acceptance letter. I left the recipient line blank. I'll fill that in at the meeting. Margaret nodded. She closed her leather folio, tapped the top of it twice. You know what I like about this plan? Tell me. It's not a weapon. It's a door. Nobody argues with a door. They can argue with how it was built, but they can't argue that it's there. I looked at the stack. $250,000, reorganized from my personal reserves into a nonprofit that would outlive all of us. The fund had a board. Myself, Ethan, 2 working artists, one from Cleveland, one from Bloomington. Margaret as legal advisor. The advisory council met twice a year. The recipient pool would grow. Year 1, 1 girl. By year 3, if the projections held, 10. Tomorrow night, I said, there's going to be a moment where everyone in that room is looking at me. I'm going to hand this letter to Abby in front of all of them. Margaret smiled, a small one. That's the door opening. That night at 11:23, my phone lit up. The group thread, Langley family, 14 members. I'd muted it in 2023. Derek wrote, "Great news, everyone. Tracy has agreed to help us with $250,000 for the loan. Mom locked it in. Family meeting tomorrow is just formalities. Thanks to everyone who helped get her there. Love you guys." 3 emoji. A praying hands. A heart. A red bow. I had agreed to nothing. I had said nothing. Within 10 minutes, 7 people liked it. Aunt Marlene, our girl came through. Proud of you, Tracy. Uncle Ken, atta girl. That's a Langley. Cousin Deb, knew you would. You're the best of us. Patricia Nolan, how she'd ended up in a family group chat I still don't know. Hugs to the whole family. Ethan walked up behind me, read over my shoulder. He's trying to lock you in by tomorrow, he said. I know. You want to respond? No. Then it becomes an argument. Let it sit. I took 5 screenshots, not for court, not for anyone, for myself. So that later, when some part of me softened, I could look at these words and remember that my brother had announced my generosity 48 hours before I'd even been asked. I put the phone face down. Ethan pulled me into him. You can still skip the meeting. No, I can't. Why? Because if I don't walk through that door myself, I'll be 60 and still thinking I should have. He kissed the top of my head. Okay. What do you need tonight? Nothing. Cereal and a bad movie. We ate Honey Nut Cheerios standing at the kitchen island, watched 20 minutes of a movie neither of us was paying attention to. I slept 6 hours. I woke up calm, That was the surprising part. I was calmer than I'd been in years. Marion is 93 miles from our driveway. We took the Porsche. Ethan drove. I sat in the passenger seat with the folder on my lap, my knees bouncing a little. Margaret rode behind us in her own car. Older black Audi. She liked the independence. We parked at the curb at 7:43, under the streetlight, so that anyone glancing out the front window would see the car. The house hadn't changed in 30 years. Beige vinyl siding, a wreath on the door that rotated by season. Right now it was sunflowers, even though it was April. My mother had never been seasonal. Inside, 11 people were already arranged on the furniture. I counted as we entered. My father in the leather recliner, my mother on one end of the sofa, Aunt Marlene next to her, Uncle Ken in the wingback, Patricia Nolan in the other wingback. Two of my cousins, Dan and Kyle, on dining chairs dragged in from the other room. Derek on the love seat, his ex-wife Heather seated beside him, holding a purse on her lap like armor. There was one open armchair, mine. No chair for Ethan, no chair for Margaret. My mother stood up. "Oh, you brought company. This is my husband Ethan. This is Margaret Holloway, my attorney." Aunt Marlene's mouth opened, closed. My father said, "Tracy, this is family business. Ethan is family, Margaret is here as counsel. We didn't ask for a lawyer. I brought one anyway." The room was quiet. My mother pointed to the armchair. I sat on a hard dining chair, straighter. Margaret dragged in a third from the dining room for herself. Ethan stood behind me, a hand on the back of my chair. The cinnamon candle on the mantel was lit. I hadn't smelled that scent in 2 years. I opened the folder, set it on the coffee table, closed, title face up. Nobody looked at it yet. Aunt Marlene cleared her throat, adjusted her necklace. "Tracy, you've done well." "Thank you, Aunt Marlene. But blood is blood." "I agree. Your brother's in trouble." "I know. 250 is fair." "Who told you that number?" "Derek." "Did anyone ask me?" "Honey, we're asking now." My father leaned forward. "Tracy, don't interrupt your aunt." "I asked a question, Dad." Patricia spoke up. "Sweetheart, this family raised you." I didn't look at her. "Mrs. Nolan, what is your role here?" I'm a long-time friend." "Of whose?" "Your mother's." "Then this isn't family business, it's a neighborhood meeting." My mother's jaw tightened. "Tracy, don't embarrass me." "Mom, I haven't embarrassed anyone yet." Uncle Ken coughed. "Let's stay calm." "I am calm." My father spoke again. "Tracy, the family has discussed it. Without me. We knew where you'd land." "You assumed where I'd land." 250 won't kill you." 250 isn't the number in question, Dad." "What do you mean?" "We'll get there." Aunt Marlene tried again. "Tracy, think of the kids, little Mason, little Piper." Piper was Derek's younger daughter, 6, sweet kid. I sent her a birthday card in February. Derek had never mentioned it to me. I'd found out from Heather in a thank you text. "I think about them often, Aunt Marlene." "Then do the right thing." "I plan to." The room shifted. Small shift. A shift. I felt Ethan's hand tighten on the back of my chair. Just once. A squeeze I recognized. It meant, "I'm here. I'm not talking yet. But I'm here." Margaret opened her leather folio. Didn't pull anything out, just opened it. Even that small gesture changed the temperature of the room. Derek finally spoke. "Can we just get to the terms?" "Derek," I said, "you posted terms to the group chat last night, remember?" He went red. My mother pivoted. She was good at pivots. "Tracy, I want to remind you. Mom woke up at 4 every day. I packed your lunches." "You did. Thank you." "I sat up when you had strep." "You did." "I drove you to gymnastics every Saturday for 6 years." "I remember." "So after everything I've given you, you come into my house and humiliate me?" "Mom, have I raised my voice?" "Don't be smart with me." My father cut in. "Tracy, you have almost no experience being an adult in this family." That one hit sideways. Ethan shifted behind me. I put my hand up without turning. "Dad, I've been an adult in this family since I paid my first semester of tuition. That was 17 years ago." We would have helped. You chose not to. Don't rewrite history. I don't have to rewrite anything. I was there. Derek jumped in. She's got that Porsche. This isn't a real hardship. Ethan spoke. First time. Quiet. I'd like to ask a question, if nobody minds. My mother waved a hand. Go ahead. In the last 3 years, has anyone in this room asked Tracy about her company? Silence. A long one. 9, 10 seconds. Nobody raised a hand. Nobody opened their mouth. Uncle Ken finally said, We knew she was doing well. That's not what I asked, Ethan said. His voice was still soft. I asked if anyone asked her. About the work. About a client. About a single project. Nobody answered. Patricia Nolan cleared her throat, looked at her shoes. My mother said, Ethan, we're not on trial. I didn't say you were. I asked a question. I hear silence. I'll take that as the answer. The cinnamon candle flickered. Somewhere in the house, the old grandfather clock in the hall ticked once, loud. A car door slammed outside. Headlights swept the front window. My mother frowned. Who on earth? I stood up. That'd be the rest of the meeting. I walked to the front door, opened it. Abby was on the porch in her navy sweater, a folder against her chest, hair in a low pony. She looked 17 and 25 at the same time. Am I late? Right on time, sweetheart. I led her into the living room. Derek half stood. Abby, what are you doing here? Aunt Tracy asked me to come. My mother's voice went sharp. Grandchildren don't belong in grown-up conversations. I squeezed Abby's shoulder. Abby isn't a grandchild tonight. She's the reason I'm here. The room didn't understand yet. You could watch it on the faces. Aunt Marlene tilted her head. Patricia froze with her water glass. My father's eyes narrowed the way they did when a car part didn't fit. I walked to the coffee table, opened the folder, took out the thick cream document on top, set it face up so everyone could read the header. The Ruth Langley Arts Fellowship. My mother's face went white. Actually white. She lifted a hand to her chest. Ruth, my mother. Your mother, I said, who left me $52,000 when she died, which became the seed money for my company, which became this. My father said, What is this? It's a scholarship fund, federally registered, 501c3, already operational. Derek leaned forward. How much is in it? $250,000, committed 8 weeks ago. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Wait, you mean the money you're supposed to give me? There is no money I'm supposed to give you, Derek. There's money I've already given. To who? I looked at Abby. She was watching me, calm, not afraid. I picked up the blank acceptance letter, picked up my pen. Abby, come sit next to me. She sat. The whole room watched, and I uncapped the pen. Let me pause here for just a second. I know some of you watching have been in a room like this, maybe not with a cinnamon candle on the mantel, maybe not with 11 people on the furniture, but with the same silent math running underneath. How much do I owe them for being born into this family? If this story has been useful to you so far, would you leave one word in the comments? Heard. That's all. I read every one of them. Okay, back to Marion, Ohio. Abby just sat down beside me, and I uncapped the pen. I read the letter aloud, slowly, clearly, the way you read a verdict. The Ruth Langley Arts Fellowship is pleased to confirm that its inaugural recipient is... I wrote her name across the blank line. Firm strokes. Abigail Rose Langley, 4-year full scholarship to the Savannah College of Art and Design. Total value, $176,000, effective fall semester. I signed. Margaret leaned forward, opened her folio, took out the small brass seal, pressed it to the paper. 2 sharp impressions. The embossed seal of a nonprofit foundation my family had never heard of until 30 seconds earlier. I handed the letter to Abby. You got into SCAD, sweetheart. Now you get to go. Abby's eyes filled. She didn't sob. She pressed the letter to her chest with both hands, like it was a baby bird. Derek stood up. Hold on. Abby is my daughter. She's your daughter. She's my niece. I'm allowed to support her. You didn't ask me. I asked Heather. She signed a release 2 weeks ago. Heather, on the love seat, raised her hand slightly. I did. Derek turned on her. You didn't tell me. No, Heather said. I didn't. My mother was still staring at the letter. Ruth. You used Ruth's name. She's the reason the fund exists, Mom. She saved $50 a month for 41 years. She told me not to become her. I'm making sure Abby doesn't either. You used my mother's name without asking me. I used my grandmother's name, with her blessing. I have a letter from her in that folder too. My father's hands were gripping the arms of the recliner. Tracy, what about the bank? I turned to him, calm. We'll get to the bank, Dad. My father straightened his spine. He'd been a shift foreman at General Motors for 32 years. He knew how to stand up. Tracy, your mother and I co-signed your brother's note. The bank is counting on you. The bank is counting on me without my consent, Dad. I'm your father. You are. That creates an obligation. Not a financial one. He looked at Margaret. Margaret set her leather folio on her knees. Mr. Langley, I pulled the first federal paperwork yesterday. The co-signers on record are you and Derek. Tracy is not on any document. The bank has no legal claim on her. Harold Kramer said what you suggested he say. That's a handshake, not a lien. I've known Harold since 1979. Then Harold owes you a favor. He doesn't owe Tracy one. My father sat back, didn't have a next line. Derek tried. Tracy, you can't leave me like this. I'm not leaving you, Derek. Feels like it. I turned toward him, straight on. No edge in my voice. Columbus runs a program called Small Business Reset. 12 weeks. It pairs you with a mentor, teaches you cash flow, and ends with a $12,000 startup grant if you finish. Applications open Monday. I emailed the director this afternoon. She knows your name. I don't need a class. I need cash. I know. I'm not giving you cash. I'm opening a door. That's not the same. No. It's better. Derek made a sound halfway between a laugh and a curse. He ran his hand over his face. My mother was crying now. Not heartbreak tears, furious ones, the kind that come out sideways when the script has been ripped up. Tracy, how dare you? Mom, how dare you? Ethan quietly pulled a tissue from the side table, held it out to her. My mother ignored the tissue. She stood up. Tracy, you are doing this to me in front of everyone? In front of your aunt? In front of Patricia? Mom, you invited Patricia. You are not my daughter. The room stopped. Uncle Ken actually flinched. Aunt Marlene said, Diane, sit down. I didn't stand. I didn't raise my voice. I looked at my mother across the coffee table and I said, Mom, I'm your daughter. You can't unbirth me. What you can choose is what conditions you want that daughter to exist under. I gave you life. You did. And this is how you repay me. I'm not repaying you. I'm not alone. Ethan spoke. Quiet. Mrs. Langley, we didn't come here to cut anyone off. We came to open a different door. Tracy can tell you what that door is, if you'd like to sit back down and hear it. Aunt Marlene tugged on my mother's sleeve. Diane, sit, please. My mother didn't sit. She walked to the window, looked out at the Porsche under the streetlight. Abby, small voice, clear. Grandma, I'm sorry, but I'm taking this scholarship. I earned it. My mother didn't turn around. Her shoulders shook once, then stopped. Patricia Nolan reached for her purse. Maybe you should, I said. Not unkindly. She gathered her things, let herself out. The door clicked softly. Uncle Ken stood too. Ken, said Aunt Marlene, sit down. He sat. Derek was looking at Abby, actually looking at her, like he was seeing her for the first time since she'd walked in. Ab, you really got in? I really got in, Dad. Since when do you paint? She almost smiled. Since I was 9, Dad. He didn't say anything else. My father stared at his hands. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, handed Abby the letter to hold, picked up the folder. I'd like to say one more thing before we go. The room, for once, gave me the floor. I didn't come here to hand out favors. I came here to put things in their right place. My money is not a family resource. It never was. It isn't becoming one tonight. My niece deserves to be seen. Tonight she is. My brother deserves to be helped, correctly. There's a path on the table for that. And I deserve to be a guest at my own wedding. That ship has sailed. I'm not asking for it back. Derek looked up. Tracy. Not tonight, Derek. Maybe over coffee next week. I looked at Abby. Sweetheart, would you like to ride back to Columbus with us? Your mom knows. You can stay with us through Sunday. Abby nodded. Stood. Looked at her father. Dad, I'll call you tomorrow. Derek said hoarsely. Okay. Okay, kiddo. My mother still hadn't turned from the window. Mom, when you're ready to talk without terms, you have my number. I'll always answer. I walked to her, stopped 6 feet away, didn't reach. I love you. That part hasn't changed. What's changed is what I'll do about it. She didn't speak. I walked to the door. Ethan took Abby's backpack. Margaret followed. My father watched us from the recliner but did not stand. Outside, the night was cool. The Porsche hummed when I unlocked it. Abby climbed in the passenger seat. Is it okay if I sit up front, Aunt Tracy? Abigail rose. You have always been the front seat kid in this family. Nobody just told you. She laughed, then cried a little, quietly, into the sleeve of her sweater. We drove the first 40 miles in silence. Then Ethan reached back from the driver's seat and squeezed my knee, and the three of us started to laugh. I wrote the post at 5:30 in the morning, in the kitchen, in my robe, with Biscuit asleep on my foot. 600 words. No names mentioned except my grandmother's and Abby's. I wrote about Ruth Ann Langley, and the $50 a month for 41 years, and the young woman in the paint-stained smock who had wanted art school in Cleveland. I wrote about the fund's mission. I wrote about the first recipient. I attached the photograph of Abby at 16, a watercolor of a blue heron propped against her knee. I hit post at 6:02. I drank my coffee. By 10 a.m., the post had 400 shares. By 1, the Columbus Dispatch had emailed asking for a phone interview. The reporter's name was Cristina Fuentes. She was kind. She asked good questions. By Friday, the piece ran. Local designer launches $250,000 arts fellowship in honor of grandmother. Above the fold on the City Life section, Abby's photo beside mine. 47,000-page views by Sunday. The fund email inbox held 18 applications by that evening. A 20-year-old illustrator in Dayton. A sculpture major's mom writing on her daughter's behalf from Akron. A 19-year-old film student in Cleveland. All women. All from the Midwest. All of them, in their cover letters, saying some version of the same sentence. No one in my family believes this is a real career. Aunt Marlene texted me at 3 on Friday. Tracy, I owe you an apology. I didn't know the whole story. I should have asked. I'm sorry. I read it twice. Then I wrote back. Thank you, Aunt Marlene. I appreciate that. We can talk next time you're in Columbus. I didn't write back in the family group chat. I muted it for another 90 days. Derek texted me at 4:17 that afternoon. I called the small business reset number. They have an intake Friday. I'll be there. I wrote back one word. Good. We met at a cafe on 3rd Avenue. He was already there when I walked in. Black coffee, no sandwich. He looked 10 pounds lighter than at McAllister's. He didn't ask for anything. I did the reset intake, he said. They gave me a workbook. Good. It's a lot of cash flow spreadsheets. Those will save you. He took a breath. Tracy, I owe you an apology. I waited. The wedding. I didn't skip it because of the baptism. I figured. I was mad. You had your life together. I was going through the divorce. I couldn't stand in a garden watching you get what I was losing. That's honest, Derek. I've been sitting with it. Since Tuesday. It's ugly. It is ugly. Thank you for saying it. He turned his cup in his hands. I don't know how to be a better brother. Nobody taught me that one. I don't have to be your teacher, but I'll send you the number of a therapist in Columbus. His name is David Brennan. He's good. I'll cover your first 3 sessions. After that, you're on your own. Tracy, you don't have to. I'm doing it for me, not you. I'd like a brother I can call at Christmas. He looked at the ceiling, blinked hard. Then he pulled a white envelope from his jacket pocket, slid it across the table. "What's this?" $500. You paid for lunch at McAllister's. You paid for 2 lunches, actually. I owe you more. I'll owe you the rest. But this is a start. Derek. Take it, Tracy, please. I need to be able to hand you money instead of ask for it. I took the envelope, put it in my bag. Call David Monday. Will do. He stood up, left me his coffee unfinished. I sat there another 10 minutes. Drank it for him. 6 weeks after the meeting, my mother texted me. Tracy. I was wrong. Can I come see you? I'd like to meet your husband properly. I read it twice. Showed Ethan. What do you want to do? I don't know. I want to say yes, but I don't want to say yes for the wrong reason. He kissed my temple. Then give yourself a few days. I took 4. On the 5th day, I wrote back. Mom. Yes, with 3 conditions. 1. No conversation about Derek. 2. No conversation about money. 3. Ethan sits at the table. She wrote back inside an hour. Agreed. Can I bring the oatmeal cookies you liked as a girl? I hadn't eaten those cookies in 30 years. When I was 10, they were the cookies my mother made for Derek's lunchbox. She gave me the broken ones from the bottom of the jar. I wrote back. Sure. Saturday she came. Tupperware in her hands. She wore a cardigan I'd never seen. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not thinner. Smaller, the way people get after a hard year. Ethan shook her hand. Made tea. Asked her about her years in the 2nd grade classroom. She told a story about a kid named Joey who'd memorized every state capital by Halloween. She was good in that story. You could see the teacher she'd been. She didn't bring up Derek. She didn't bring up money. Before she left, standing by the door, she reached and hugged me. Her arms were thinner than I remembered. She didn't say anything, neither did I. Afterwards, Ethan said, How do you feel? I don't know yet. I cried that night. Not for her. For my grandmother Ruth, who had waited 30 years for a door that swung open once and only once, and who had never gotten to walk through it. I didn't tell my mother about the tears. Some things don't belong in the same room yet. Abby moved to Savannah in late August. I drove her down in the Porsche, Ethan in the passenger seat, her art supplies filling every inch of the back. 900 miles. We stopped for peach ice cream in Georgia. Biscuit came too. Biscuit slept the whole way. Her dorm was a renovated 1920s warehouse 3 blocks from the river. I cried a little on the way home. Not sad tears, the other kind. First semester she carried 20 credit hours, color theory, drawing fundamentals, figure, watercolor intensive, and a seminar on American craft. She called me on Sundays. Finals week she emailed me her grades, 4 A's and 1 A-. The A- was figure drawing. Her professor had told her she drew women too softly. She'd argued back. I drew them the way I was raised to see them, she told me on the phone. I'm unlearning it. In October, her watercolor instructor, a woman named Cassandra Thibault, emailed me directly. She'd looked up the fund after seeing Abby's financial aid paperwork. She wanted to know if we'd consider applications from SCAD transfers from outside the Midwest. She wanted to send the link to her colleagues. I said yes. By December, we'd had 3 corporate matching donations: Columbus Design Guild, $50,000, a woman-owned brewery in Cleveland, $30,000, a small foundation based in Louisville, $40,000. The fund had grown to $370,000. Abby sent me her first assigned painting at SCAD. A watercolor self-portrait, but she'd set it up as a double exposure. Her own face overlaid with a black and white photograph of a woman in a paint-stained smock, standing before a half-finished watercolor of a barn. She'd captioned the package. 3 words. Grandma Ruth, me. I hung it in my office at Langley and Company. Clients asked about it. I told them the story. Most of them cried a little too. I kept a box of tissues next to the painting. It was used more often than I expected. 6 months after the meeting, Derek opened a new garage. It was on the west side of Marion. A single bay, a used lift, a hand-lettered sign. Langley Auto Service. 2 younger mechanics he'd hired from the community college. He'd passed the Small Business Reset program in October. The $12,000 grant had gone toward a compressor and insurance. He'd moved into a 2-bedroom rental. His kids stayed with him Tuesday through Saturday. Mason had his own dinosaur sheets. Piper slept with a purple unicorn nightlight. I knew those details because Derek sent me a picture of their rooms the week he moved in. He was still seeing David Brennan, the therapist. He'd paid for months 4 and 5 himself. He hadn't asked me for anything else. The $180,000 loan was still on the books. My father was paying it down from his pension, $250 a month. At that rate, it would outlive him. It was his debt to carry. I wasn't involved. Thanksgiving that year, Derek drove up to Columbus, brought a pecan pie, bought the pie himself from a bakery in Marion, didn't pretend he'd made it. Ethan and I had invited 8 people, Margaret and her wife, 2 of my employees who didn't have family in town, Abby, home for the break, Heather and the kids. Derek had asked if Heather could come, because the kids wanted their mom there. I'd said yes. Heather had said yes. It was a strange table. Good strange. Derek raised a glass after the turkey was carved. He cleared his throat. He was nervous. I could see his hand shaking a little. "To my sister," he said, "who didn't give up on me, even though she had a lot of reasons to." Nobody said anything smart or witty. We just drank. Piper asked for more mashed potatoes. Biscuit begged under the table. Ethan passed the cranberry sauce. It was, I think, the first Thanksgiving of my adult life I hadn't dreaded. 4 months after the meeting, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten, 6 pages, yellow legal paper. His ballpoint leaned hard to the right, the way it always had. My father had never written me a letter. He told me about his father, a man named Harold Langley, who had worked at Marion Power Shovel for 34 years, and who had beat my father with a belt twice a week from the ages of 8 to 14. He told me that when he'd left home at 17, he'd promised himself his own children would never be afraid of him. He wrote, "I kept that promise. I never raised a hand. I thought that meant I was doing it right." Then he wrote, "There are other ways to push a child aside. I didn't see them. I see them now. I'm sorry, Tracy. I don't expect anything back. I just wanted it written down. So you'd have it. In your own handwriting file. I read it twice. Then I put it in the small fireproof box in my office closet, next to the envelope my grandmother had given me when I was 12. The old black and white photograph. The folded obituary from the Marion Star. I didn't write back. I may never write back. Not because I don't want to. The letter didn't ask for a reply, and I wanted to honor what it actually was. A deposit, not a transaction. I told Ethan about it at dinner. "What are you going to do?" he said. "Nothing. For now." "Is that okay with you?" "Yes. Some apologies don't need a receipt. They just need to be received." I ate my pasta. The light through the kitchen window was the kind of amber you only get in late October. Ethan poured us both a second glass of wine. Biscuit chewed a rubber squeaker on the rug. The box in my closet was a little heavier than it had been that morning. The second year of the Ruth Langley Arts Fellowship opened applications on February 1st. By May, we'd received 340 applications from 22 states. The board, myself, Ethan, the 2 working artists, Margaret as counsel, met in a conference room at my office. We read every cover letter, every portfolio, every recommendation. We chose 4 recipients. Hannah Carr, 19, from a small town in eastern Kentucky, sculpture. Her grandfather was a coal miner. Her mother worked at Walmart. Hannah had been accepted to Pratt. Simone Williams, 24, from Cleveland. Illustration. Single mother, 1 daughter named Ayla. Going to Maryland Institute College of Art online while working nights as a home health aide. Jordan Parker, 20, from Bloomington, Indiana. Photography major at Heron School of Art. Estranged from family at 18. Worked 2 restaurant jobs for a year to save tuition before applying to us. And Marisol Ramos, 25, from a neighborhood on the east side of Cleveland. Mixed media. 2 kids. Going back to school after a 7-year break. We held a small public announcement in June at the Columbus Museum of Art. Invitation only. The mayor came. Cristina Fuentes from the Dispatch covered it. I gave an 8-minute speech. I didn't mention my parents. I didn't mention my brother. I mentioned my grandmother. I mentioned the 4 young women at the front of the room. In the second row, I saw Ethan, Margaret, Abby, home for the summer, in a mustard yellow sundress. My staff, Heather, Derek's ex, who had volunteered to read applications that year. She'd been surprisingly sharp at it. She caught 3 hidden gems the rest of us had skimmed past. My mother wasn't there. I hadn't invited her, not out of cruelty, out of clarity. The event wasn't about us. At the end, all 4 recipients came up to the podium. Each held a cream-colored letter with the seal pressed into the bottom corner. Each had her own answer to the question, why this matters to me. The room clapped for a long time. One evening in July, I got an Instagram message from a 19-year-old I didn't know. Her handle was @MadisonSketches. Her profile picture was a cartoon of a girl holding a paintbrush. Her bio said, Minneapolis, Art Institute. Hopefully, the message said. Hi, Ms. Langley. You don't know me. I applied for your fellowship and didn't get it. It's fine. The 4 who did are incredible. I just wanted to say thank you anyway. My mom read your LinkedIn post out loud to me in April. She was trying to argue that art school was a waste. By the end of your post, she was crying. She still wasn't sure, but she stopped saying no. I enrolled at the Art Institute in Minneapolis in May. I start in August. I'm the first person in my family to go to art school. I wouldn't have had the courage without your story. I won't forget it. Madison. I read it 3 times. I wrote back. Madison. Thank you. You start in August. Would you keep me posted? I'd like to see what you make. She wrote back within an hour. Really? Yes, I'll send you things. I closed my phone, set it face down on the kitchen counter. Ethan was grilling on the back deck. I walked outside. He looked up. What? Nothing. Just something I needed to hear. You want to tell me? Later. I sat on the deck with a glass of white wine and watched him flip the chicken. Biscuit lay at my feet. A neighbor down the street had just started teaching his kid to ride a bike. You could hear the kid laughing. I had started this fun to change my own life. Setting it up, I hadn't known it would ripple out to a girl in Minneapolis I would never meet. That's the part nobody tells you. You set something up to save yourself. Then it saves other people too. For our 2-year anniversary, we didn't redo the wedding. We had 12 people in the backyard. Abby, Heather, Derek, Mason and Piper, who took turns with Biscuit on the lawn, Margaret and her wife Jo, 2 of my employees, Rachel and Dev. The 2 scholarship recipients who'd made it from out of town, Hannah and Simone. Ethan's parents. My parents weren't there. I hadn't invited them. It wasn't punishment. It was pacing. My mother and I were working on something slow. She came up for lunch once a month. We hadn't yet gotten to the part where she would see the life I'd built, up close, with its people in it. I wasn't going to rush it. Ethan's father said grace. We ate pulled pork and 3 kinds of salad. Derek grilled. He'd gotten better. After the toast round, Derek stood up last. He had a glass of water. He hadn't had a drink since October. I want to say something, he said, voice already a little rough. To my sister, who didn't give up on me, who also didn't let me off the hook. I don't know which one saved me more. Probably both. Abby raised her lemonade. To Aunt Tracy, who saw me before anyone else did. Margaret stood. To Tracy, who writes doors, not weapons. Ethan stood. To my wife, who I didn't have to rescue. She walked up the aisle by herself the first time. I've been lucky ever since. I cried, laughed, waved them off. Piper climbed into my lap. Mason fed Biscuit a rib bone we had to fish out of his mouth. The string lights flickered on as the sun went down. The neighbor on the other side of the fence was out on his porch. He waved. This was the wedding my parents had missed. They hadn't missed a wedding. They'd missed this. I forgave them for it quietly that night. I didn't tell them yet. That Sunday I sat at my desk in the office upstairs. Took out a plain sheet of paper. Wrote the following. The Langley Rules. Revision 1. 1. I do not loan or gift money to blood family. I offer opportunity, training, referrals, therapy. 2. I do not attend family meetings that have been staged to judge me. 3. I return to Marion only when I am invited kindly, not summoned. 4. I am my mother's daughter and my grandmother's granddaughter. Those 2 things do not cancel each other out. 5. I do not apologize for success. I also do not display it to prove a point. I pinned the page to the corkboard above my filing cabinet. Ethan came in with 2 mugs of tea. He read the list, took a sip, took the pen out of the mug where I kept my pens, added a 6th line in his own handwriting. 6. I am allowed to revise this list. I laughed. He kissed me. What made you write it? Fear that I'll forget. You won't forget. You lived it. I've lived plenty of things I've forgotten. The lessons go first. The pain stays. Fair enough. He sat on the chair by the window. I pinned a second note beside the first. A quote I'd read once and couldn't shake. It was from a woman I'd never met, a labor organizer from the 1930s. Don't ask for the kindness. Build the building that makes kindness possible. That's a good one, Ethan said. I'm going to read it every Monday, for about a year, until I believe it without having to read it. Biscuit trotted in, settled on the rug between us. The sun came through the west window at the angle it only gets in September. Low, gold, soft on the wood floors I'd refinished myself. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt settled, like a house whose foundation had finally stopped shifting under my feet. A year after the meeting, I drove down to Savannah to pick Abby up for summer break. Ethan had a conference in Boston. I went alone. Just me and Biscuit and the Porsche and 900 miles. Abby packed her dorm into the back. It smelled like turpentine and lavender soap. She climbed in the passenger seat. She was 5'10" now and twice as confident as she'd been at 17. We hit I-75 north of Macon. The sun was lowering. She'd been quiet for about 30 miles. Aunt Tracy, can I ask you something? Sure. When I'm a real artist, in 15 years, what do you want me to remember? I thought about it for about 2 miles. 2 things. Ready? Ready. 1. Your name on that letter wasn't luck. You earned it. There was also a woman named Ruth, 70 years ago, who didn't earn her own ticket because nobody handed her one. Remember that you're carrying her ticket too. Okay. 2. If someone in our family gets sick one day and you can help, you help. That's what family does when it's healthy. But you do not owe anyone in that family your life. Your life is yours, not collateral, not interest, not insurance. Got it. She was quiet for a long minute. Then, are you sorry? About any of it? I'm sorry Grandma Ruth didn't see it. That's the part that hurts. I'm also sorry I waited 15 years to speak up. Silence isn't loyalty. Silence is permission. Abby nodded. She looked out the window. The sun was on her face. She had her sketchbook open in her lap. She was drawing the dashboard of the Porsche and the edge of my hand on the wheel. We rolled through the Georgia pines. Biscuit snored in the back seat. Fleetwood Mac came on the radio. Landslide. Stevie Nicks in the dashboard. Abby closed her eyes and sang along, quietly. She knew every word. I didn't sing. I drove. Real family is people who don't ask you to prove it. Anyone who makes you prove it, they're not family, no matter what the last name on the mailbox says. The highway stretched ahead. The sun dipped. Abby reached across the console, still humming, and rested her hand on top of mine on the gear shift. I drove us home. I'll stop the story there. I know many of you watching have a version of this. Maybe you're 35, maybe 52, and still learning how to set a line with people you love. 2 questions. Pick one. Answer in the comments with 1 word. Have you already set the boundary? Done. Are you still finding the courage? Soon. Just 1 word. I read every single one. If you want to hear how Abby's second year at SCAD turned out, I linked that video in the description below. Wishing you a week where you set 1 small boundary, and next week, a slightly bigger one.